Hello, everyone. My name is Hector Del Castillo, Chief Product Officer at Bold PM, and I'd like to welcome you to tonight's meetup. Today's topic is manipulating data using Ultorg's no-code approach. And today's speaker who will be conducting the demo is Eirik Bakke. And Eirik, how are you doing today?
Very good, thank you.
All right, looking forward to your demo. And let me just get started, and then we can get going on the demo. So for those who are joining us, if you can put yourself on listen-only mode, just to make sure that there's no background noise, you can mute ourselves. You can decide whether or not to keep your webcam on. You're always welcome to do so. And also, if you experience any audio issues or any technical issues whatsoever, you might want to refresh your browser. And also, we are going to have a Q&A, so submit your questions using the chat window, and we'll get to them either as we go on the actual discussion or the demo, and also we can also maybe address them during the Q&A portion as well. We're recording today's session, so you'll be able to watch tonight's playback if you want. You'll be able to get a link where you're going to be able to get the information to where you can view the video after tonight's live session. And special thanks and shout out to all of these companies for Make Offices, because they're usually our usual physical location where we meet, and we're planning on doing so as soon as we can actually do so in a safe manner. Also, Bold PM, which is my company, for hosting, and Intelligent for also being a co-host, and Beyond for also making access to their Zoom webinars when we need it, their Zoom webinar plan when we need to do a larger audience. If you're on Twitter, you can follow those particular hashtags and handles, hashtag BIDC, hashtag Meetup, hashtag Business Intelligence, and hashtag Business Analytics. You can also follow me at HM Del Castillo, or Philip Similis, our co-organizer. P Similis is the handle for him. Tonight's agenda is going to be no different than usual. We're going to be doing some welcoming announcements, and then after that, we'll begin Erik's discussion, and he'll do the demo, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. And there's also back-end networking. And for those of you who are new, we meet every month, first Thursday of each month. And this is the short URL where you can actually view our Meetup page. So if you're interested in finding out what's coming up, you can do so. You can visit our page and then just become a member. It's free to do so. We only have 2 more remaining meetings this year, because actually 3, because we're going October, November. Actually, right now we're October. 2 more, November and December, and then we're done with 2020. And maybe some of you are so glad to be done with 2020, but at least to let you know, we've been meeting every month, and as soon as we could, we actually went virtual, and that's what we've been doing ever since. And we've been doing this since March. Announcements, any meetings and meetups, we actually have been posting that information on our Meetup page. So you can actually go to the comment section of our Meetup page, and you can see what people have been typing in for upcoming conferences that are analytics or business intelligence related. And also, if anybody's hiring or if anybody's looking, we're asking for people to share so that we can actually connect people, so that we can actually really start converting our Meetup to be more of a community. And that more information is there available for those of you who want to find out what else is going on in between our meetups. And we actually posted this information. I don't know if anybody attended, but it actually was an AWS conference that was a virtual online event, and it was all data and analytics. So if you attended, let us know. At least share anything that you can a summary of whatever went on if you did attend, and you can do so on the comments page in our Meetup, just so you can share with anybody else who might be interested or who did not get a chance to attend. And we're always asking for people to actually type in more information as you learn about any new conferences, and even if they're live online or virtual, let us know, and you can actually feel free to post those as comments on our Meetup page. Also, if you're interested in becoming a sponsor, you can reach out. You can actually click through the Learn More button and actually let us know if you're interested in actually being part of hosting or sponsoring a future meetup with us, where you have, maybe a platform or an application you want to demo, or you want to talk about some of the work that you've done as consultants or either working on a project that was rewarding, and you want to share some of the things that you learned.
So Hector,
Yes. Maury, welcome.
thank you. How many more people see the videos?
Usually we get a lot more views after the live session because normally, we get at least a 50% drop off, and that's no different tonight. We had about close to 20 people on the meetup. We have about 26 people total that actually signed up. Usually we've been getting about 50% drop off in those people who attend. So usually 10 to 20 attend, but twice that is people that sign up, and we send a link where they can view to everyone who's in our meetup. And many times what I find is that we get a lot more views after, once we have the post event page, and
Okay,
that we've been doing that for every.
Since that's happening, sorry to interrupt, but since that's happening, I'll just go ahead and say this in the video, so if anybody sees it, they can. Microsoft is looking for people who consider themselves cloud engineers. So that'll be what will be the official title for the person, and basically any amount of knowledge you have about working in the cloud probably be a useful start. If you have extensive, that's even better. So look for cloud engineer positions. Also cloud solutions architects and the usual, but cloud engineer positions are being really sought right now. For the AWS online, what was it?
Summit? The summit?
Yeah, the summit.
Event?
Well, the online event. At the same time, Microsoft was having their Ignite summit. So all those are recorded. So all you have to do is look for Microsoft Ignite, and you can follow. It was actually at the same time, and you can follow all the videos. And we've gone through them once with customers, and we're going through them again just to emphasize the technology. First time was just to connect customers and partners, even more so with it. I mean, everybody was welcome, but that was the purpose. And this time around is more to talk deeper into the technology. So
interesting. Let me actually flip over to my browser actually and see if I can find that page where and I can share the URL as we're recording the session. But I believe that you had shared this a month ago or 2 months ago.
Maybe.
I wasn't really sure, and I had asked if somebody could post it. I don't think I never wrote down the information, but it was actually recorded and captured on the chat as well. I remember you had sent out a URL initially, and I just looking to see it. Yeah, this might be it, I think. myignite.microsoft.com, is that correct? Sure,
yeah. I mean, once you have Microsoft, okay, so it's like, I think this is I know that guy. This is the third time around, and they're posting sessions or emphasizing certain sessions.
There's a catalog here.
And that is a perfect place to be, so you can find all of these things. Sorry to take your time, Eirik, but yeah.
Okay, perfect. So this is actually good. What I'll do is I'll actually type in this into the chat, and that way also you guys can get to this page. But also anyone who I usually will share this information, and hopefully I'll take this and then remember to post this on the comments page on our meetup. I usually will tell people any of our members, once you join, has access to type in comments on any meetup page that we have. And I so far I'm the only one that has been posting. I think sometimes Samora, you've commented on some of my posts, but I usually will do this for every single meetup, is that afterwards I will come in and add some more stuff or change stuff as we discuss in the session. I'll come back and do some updates on the comments of that particular meetup. And then I also usually will post anything that happens in between meetups. I will post it on the previous meetup page, but also on the one that's coming up. And that's what I've been doing for any of the events that are posted here. I learned about this, I think it was like a couple of days after, the last meetup in September. And then I posted this information. Somebody sent me this email inviting me to a virtual career fair for developers with US clearance. So I just posted that information as well. So I've been trying to encourage people to do that so that this becomes more of a community, and I know right now there's a lot of people that are contractors who are sort of like looking for the next gig. And also, unfortunately, some people that are currently in between jobs and they're looking for the next position. And so I've been encouraging a lot of these discussions as we do the networking up front. So thank you very much for sharing, Sumori.
Sure.
Great. Let me get back to the presentation. Are you guys seeing my screen again? The presentation?
Seeing meetup.com.
Meetup.com. Okay. So let me share my full screen. Now you're seeing the.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Not to take anything away from that one. I went to the AWS one too.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to attend, but I wanted to post this information and was wondering if anybody had a chance to attend it. And one of the things, Amori, is if you want to do like a summary, even if it's like doing some light discussion and then playing a video on one of those on-demand videos that you're aware of that you think would be worthwhile for members, let me know, because we can schedule it at some point in the next few meetups that remain.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
So
yeah,
just let me know. So without further ado, I actually want to introduce tonight's speaker, and also he'll be doing a demo. And this is Eirik Bakke, and he's going to be talking about this product that he developed. This is actually his company, his application, and he's been doing this even since he was a PhD candidate. So he's been at it, and he'll be telling us his story about this. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Eirik. Eirik, how are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you for that introduction. I will now share my screen, right? That's the plan here.
Yes,
So
you have the option.
Bring up my own slides. Hello, everyone. I already met a couple of you. So let's see. So we decided to call this, to put no code in the title, because that is the currently fashionable term for what I am doing. I was a student for many years. I worked in this lovely building in Boston for about 8 years, got my PhD degree there from MIT under lovely advisor, Professor David Karger. And I worked on this application that I'm about to show you. I've actually continued working on that same project since I graduated a couple of years ago. Right now, I'm working on commercializing this former student project under a grant from the National Science Foundation, which is a government agency. So there was this comic a couple of years ago, looks like this.
Are you sharing your screen? Because we're not seeing your screen yet.
Oh, you're not seeing my screen. Let's see. Let's see. You can't. Oh, I see, because there's a dialog box here.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing your screen.
Oh, excellent. So, I'm interested in this third kind of application in this comic here. It is a particular kind of application that you find in businesses. Often they are custom made for a particular business. This seems like kind of an exaggeration, but this is what they look like. This is not a custom made app. This is Salesforce. It looks exactly like that. This is Jira, which I'm sure many of you have used. They have basically forms and tables and dashboards, and it's all really, this one is a custom-made application that was used at MIT for keeping track of grant proposals. This is another custom app. They all sort of have exactly the same user interface. There's some relational database underneath them with tables of data. And then some poor developer or team of developers had to create 30 or 40 different portals or pages on top of that database. It looks like this. This is actually a an old application that I was an end user of many years ago for my military service. I worked in Norwegian government administration, and this was a system for managing public Norwegian music schools. So keeping track of 4,000 students coming in for their 20-minute violin lessons or piano lessons or whatnot. Like a super, super specific use case. And so what's the problem? The problem is every organization has a super specific use case. There are the sort of general purpose use cases like CRM. For that, you have Salesforce. You can use Salesforce for bug tracking. It's kind of more specific, but then you have Jira. But then you have all of these other use cases that are super specific. Like at MedStar, I talked to someone who was in charge of or one of the 15 people who were in charge of doing this very particular kind of regulatory reporting on quality metrics. So they would keep track of, 700 different metrics, like 7-day visit rate after outpatient colonoscopy. That's like the kind of thing you have to keep track of if you're running hospitals, and you have to report that to the government. Otherwise, you don't get reimbursed under the Affordable Care Act. Other companies I've talked to, doing staffing, mapping staff to projects, taking into account qualifications of people. They were actually doing this in Excel, and then they were doing so much of it that they decided to have a custom-made app built for them by their IT department. And the problem is this is extremely expensive. If you try to make an app for any of these databases, you're going to spend at least 6 months for a simple app. One guy or girl implementing, an engineer implementing all of these different portals and so on top of some relational database. So usually the data just stays in Excel, which is fine, except when you have more than one user and usually more than one table of data interconnected through these one-to-many relationships and so on that you have in relational databases. So Ultorg, which is the new name of this system I'm working on, attempts to actually be a general purpose solution to this problem of storing data in a relational database without programming, without needing to build a new user interface for your company's very specific use case. And it has 3 parts of it. I'm going to show a demo that shows all of these different aspects of the system. There's a part of it that relates to, well, if we're going to work with a relational database, then the user needs to have some way to query the data. And if you know SQL, you can do a lot of different queries, but it's not very user-friendly. Even if you're a programmer, actually, typing SQL queries, it gets old if you have 15, 20 database tables. There's an aspect of this that has to do with typography and layout, just designing the forms, designing the dashboards, etc. And there's a third part of this where often in these applications, it's not just a read-only business intelligence kind of use case. Often you actually need to be able to edit the data in there too. So that immediately eliminates all the BI tools, which are all read-only. 2 of these aspects of the system were actually academic publications that you can read from a couple of years back. The third one is sort of added post student project. So I will show you what the system looks like, and I'm going to post a link in the chat here about that anyone who wants to try the system can fill in. Sorry, maybe, oh, there it is. There's the link. I'm going to put that in the chat here. If I can find the chat. There's the chat. So here's a link. If anyone wants to try this system, I think I did this privately to, let's see, everyone publicly. Here we go. So this is an unreleased system that is currently under development, and I'm sharing copies of it to anyone who wants to try it. And you can use it to work with with any kind of relational database. Right now, you can use, so I will actually show here, you can connect this to MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, or Microsoft SQL Server, or you can work with Excel spreadsheets. So typically, if you have an Excel spreadsheet containing sort of plain tables of data with named columns like in a relational database. So I have a demo database here that I'm going to use just for the purposes of the demo. But what you have to keep in mind here is that the system knows nothing about this particular database other than what it gets from just looking at the data itself. So if I open up one of these tables, this is like an academic course catalog database. So it has a list of courses that you could sign up for at a university, but this could be any relational database. This will all work regardless of what the actual tables are. So in this case, there's a table of courses. There's a table of departments like anthropology, Chinese, chemistry. There's a table of instructors. You can imagine these could be anything. They could be employees, they could be customers, they could be manufacturing batches, anything, but here it is an academic course catalog. And the interesting thing that happens in relational databases is you always end up having relationships between these different tables. So there's a table called instructor assignments that has, or maybe we'll look at another one called readings, which has for each reading there is a course ID that refers to a course in another table. So what can we do in the system? Well, the first thing we can do is we can create this concept of a perspective. So a perspective is just a query, basically. We're going to create a new query based on this courses table. And the most basic thing you can do is to just hide and show columns from that table that we started from. That's easy. You can do that in probably any respectable tool that works with relational databases. But then the interesting thing comes when you have tables of data that relate to each other. So in this case, we have another table that we looked at called readings. And if I check that box off here called readings, I'm going to see data from two different tables in one view. So this is like doing a join in a SQL query, except it's a visual kind of join. So I'm looking at a join between the two tables, courses and readings. And the system knew that I could join those two tables together because the database happened to have that information. So in a relational database, often the joins are set up in the system. If not, I could do, or suppose I'm working with an Excel spreadsheet, that this data is coming from an Excel spreadsheet, I could go in and I could get the same effect if I go in and I say, well, courses has an ID, so I want to do a join between courses ID and this other table called readings and course ID. So that is exactly the same operation, just done manually instead, same result. So I can bring in more tables here. In fact, here I can show what the entire database schema looks like, what all the tables involved are and how they're related to each other. I can see that courses are related to readings. They're related to sections, which I can check off here. And a section is a thing like a seminar, lecture, precept, etc. I can then see that sections are related through courses. So courses are related to instructors through sections and instructor assignments. Those are two additional tables in this database. So so now I look here and I find, okay, let me just move the little zoom window away here into the corner. All right. So here I have created what is essentially a database query, but it is doing joins between 1, 2, 3, and 4, and actually 5 database tables in this database. So here I've managed to just show me a course and all of the information we have about a course, even if that information is split across many different tables. If I continue doing this, there are a lot of different fields in this course table. So I could just say, well, show me all the information we have about a course. And suddenly now I end up having a very wide table. So this is now not necessarily, let's see, now there's some questions in the chat here. Well, let's see. What happens if the relational database, Samori is asking, what happens if the relational database is in columnar format or JSON? Do users have to understand SQL? Let's see. Have to know, let's see. Yes, so users do, so if the relational database is in a columnar format, that will not make a difference. So if you're if you're using Vertica, for instance, the database Vertica, which is a columnar database, it would be exactly the same. I haven't added support for that, but I think it's probably based on the Postgres protocol. So I suspect that one, Amazon Redshift 2, for instance, is another columnar database. That one uses the Postgres protocol, so the system would work with that. Jason, that is a good question. So in some databases, you actually, in MongoDB, for instance, you would actually store the data in this way, in sort of a hierarchical way that we're seeing here. And we can actually, if I remove all of these columns that we opened up here, we see sort of this nested structure that this system generates. That is actually similar to what you would see in a JSON document. In fact, I could go in and the system would show me a JSON version of this data. So what you're looking at right here, you can encode that as JSON, and it would look like this, because you would have under each course a array of readings objects, and each of those would have an author name and a title and so on. If the data is stored in JSON in the relational database in the first place, or if it's MongoDB, then this system would actually not be able to understand that, other than to just show the raw JSON. This is a system that assumes that the data is in relational form, so in the form of tables like this, which is the case in sort of all normalized database schemas, and in many Excel sheets too. So if you're connecting to an Excel sheet, you're probably going to have some worksheets that have tables of data in them, and that's the kind of data that this works with. Now, do users have to understand SQL? No, you do not. To come at the ultimate, oh, I see. To come at the ultimate solution. Maybe Samori can explain that part of the question. This is good to do questions, by the way. Yeah.
When you first start showing the solution,
yeah,
you picked a database, so you're basically coming at it from the bottom up, from the database side.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, you need to know what you're doing. Right? If you're starting with a database, you need to know a lot. So you're counting on the users knowing that.
That's true. Yeah. So in the current version of the system, the system assumes that you already have a database, because I have not built out the system for adding new tables and setting data types and so on. One thing I will say is that the system does not actually require your data to be perfectly normalized in sort of the relational database sense. So you could start out with something that is something that is just a table of data in an Excel sheet, and maybe 4 or 5 different tables in an Excel sheet, and join that together in the system, work with that in the system without necessarily polishing it into a properly normalized relational schema first. But it is true. This system does not primarily help you shape your data to normalize your data. And at the moment you cannot actually host data in the system. That is the ultimate goal for the system, to be able to create new tables of data in the system, like in Google Sheets basically, or Office Excel 365, to be able to host the data as well. But for now, it assumes that you have either a spreadsheet or a relational database to start with.
Okay.
If you do have that, then no, you do not have to understand SQL to use this. You may have to understand, at least conceptually, this idea of a join, that you can have one table that has an ID that reaches into another table, like the readings we looked at with the, one table has a column called course ID, or it doesn't have to be an opaque ID. It could just be a customer name or whatnot. So you'd have to learn this concept of being able to join,
and what it means, right? So it's not just.
Yeah,
I mean, this is pretty deep into
relational database theory. Yeah, this is so there are some conceptual things that you have to understand to use this system. We actually did user studies with I think it was 28 Excel users, so non-programmers.
Mm-hmm.
But people who were familiar with Excel, so typically power users of Excel.
Okay,
and,
that's a specific group, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is for power users of Excel.
Okay.
And probably people who are going to be spending a little bit of time with the system, learning to use it. What we saw in the user studies is if you get about 20 minutes of instructions, you can really start doing most of what the system can do. And as I will show, actually, or I won't show it in detail, but as we showed in an academic paper some years ago, the operations that I'm showing you now, I haven't shown them all. They're actually equivalent to SQL 92. So the core of SQL that we teach in database classes. Any query that you can write in SQL 92, you can make an equivalent query that will give you the same result in the system using only these graphical operations. So typically, to show you that, I would start out by showing a couple of joins like I've shown here, just to show a course and the reading list and the section list, and for each section all the instructors. Already here we're showing something that you cannot do in any other commercial tool, at least major tool that I know about. If you go into Tableau, for instance, or Power BI, you will not be able to produce this display that I have shown you here. And that is for a specific reason. That is because we have two one-to-many relationships going on at the same time. We have courses. One course has multiple readings. That is one of these one-to-many relationships. And then next to the readings, we have another subquery, so to speak, called sections, which is unrelated to the readings. So for instance, in this class called Topics in African American Religion, there is a reading list with 2 entries. And independently of the reading list, there is a list of sections, the lecture and the precept and the precept. That is a kind of visualization that you cannot do in sort of the pivot table based to access data visualization tools like Tableau or Power BI. But it is a kind of visualization that is very common in these custom-made kind of applications, like the portals and the reports that you see. Maybe not using this layout here, but one thing we can do in this tool, we can switch to a different kind of layout here. So showing the exact same data here, just as a bullet list, you will see what the structure here is. So
that makes sense.
So this is more like a JSON or an XML structure.
It's also like we used to do cascading queries or results.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
In what kind of tool or in what kind of?
Oh, in the big tools, the SAP
Yeah.
business objects and
Exactly.
OBI Oracle Business or Intelligence. Yeah.
I think this is what, so Gartner has this big BI quadrant, but then when it calculates the size of the BI market, it says with a little asterisk somewhere, it says that, oh, this 3/4 of this is actually a different category called traditional enterprise reporting.
Right.
And this is much more like the old Crystal reports, for instance. You would be able to generate this, not quite as easily, but that is a kind of visual. You could call it a visualization, except when you say visualization, people think of these pretty charts and so on. This is a different way to visualize data, and it's a way to visualize data that lets you show one-to-many relationships, and you have one-to-many relationships in all relational databases, because every time you have a new table of data, you end up having a one-to-many relationship. So this kind of visualization, this is not so common to see this. This is called a nested table visualization. It's actually a very efficient way to show one-to-many relationships. So it's the visualization you use the most in the system. And then on the sort of opposite end of it, you have this bullet list, which it shows the structure, and the main advantage is that you don't have to scroll horizontally, but it gets very verbose because it's repeating all of these column names and so on. So if you want to show a lot of data, you use a form layout instead. So let's go back to the table layout, and I'm going to show just a ton of fields. And you see that if I have a ton of fields, lots of columns, this becomes the table layout is no longer a very optimal layout because it becomes very wide. You have to do horizontal scrolling. I could zoom out. Okay, now I can see all the data without scrolling horizontally, but now I can't read the text because it's too small. So for the use case where you want to see one entity in the database and all the data we have about it, including all the relationships, you use typically in these custom-made apps, you use the form. That is what a form layout is about. And in this system, that is another kind of automatic layout. So just merely by clicking show me a form layout, the system has made me a form. So now instead of putting all the fields sort of horizontally across the screen here, it's figured out, well, the reading list I can put in a table, the section list too, in a sort of a nested table in case there are multiple instructors per sections. These primitive fields, I'm going to put them in 3 columns here to save space. And I'm going to, one thing the system does here is it measures all the fields, what's the average number of characters in each field and so on, and figures out, well, this tends to be a long field, so that's going to be alone in the first column here. These are short fields. This one always has 1 character, so we're going to center it because that looks nice and readable. It's going to figure out, oh, okay, here we have a table layout. This is a slightly longer field than the author name, so the title is going to be slightly longer. This is all stuff that if you were doing a manually created app, or even an Excel sheet, you would be spending a lot of time adjusting these silly little formatting details, the positions of labels, the sizes of columns, and so on. That is done completely automatically by this system. And whatever I'm able to do from this table layout, showing and hiding columns and so on, I can do from the same from this layout. So I can go in here and I can hide this column. I can go in now. The next thing I can show that has to do with sort of building a query is doing a filter, for instance. So if I want to filter and show only courses taught by Brian Kernigan, then, okay, that gives me advanced programming techniques, computers in our world. That was a filter. And it looks exactly the same in, well, it doesn't look the same, but it is exactly the same in this table layout. Let me hide all the columns again here so that the table layout will work again. So here we have the exact same data shown in two different visual perspectives, the form and the table. And I'm able to go in and filter for instructors. And this is 2 joins down. So if this was a SQL query, I would, well, first of all, like this is actually a view you cannot write as a single SQL query because, again, of these 2 one-to-many relationships that you have here. If you were doing a SQL query, you could do basically one table, flat table of data coming back. So under the hood, this is being translated into multiple SQL queries and then stitched together into this kind of JSON-like visualization that we see here. Yeah, was there a question?
I do have a question, Eirik.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions that I have is, can you prevent the user, where they're only able to see in the forms in different formats, but not necessarily have to or prevent them from, by mistake, writing on top of one of these filled cells that are shown?
Yeah. So all of the operations that I've done so far, none of them has changed anything in the database. So all of the operations I've shown you so far, they're read-only. You can do it even if you don't have any write access to the database. Now, if you want to go in and change things, well, this looks like Excel, and that's intentional. Right. So I could go in and I could try to change something. I'm going to start typing here. It's going to say not in data editing mode. So
so it has like a safeguard to prevent you from overwriting by mistake.
Exactly. So you have to arm this thing and say toggle data editing. Now I can go in and I can edit things, and in fact, it won't even change it until suppose I want to delete this row and I want to change the status of this section from open to closed, and I want to rename this to advanced programming techniques and other interesting things. It has not actually written anything to the database yet until I press Control S. Actually, there should be a button here eventually that says commit, but at this point I can either revert the changes or commit them, but I'm able to review my changes before committing them. So now I will press Control S, and only at this point now did it actually commit the changes. And in the long-term vision of this system, the system is actually going to let you host data in the system as well and generate a revision log for this, so that, anytime a user does this kind of operation editing the data, which is much more rare than looking at the data, you would be able to enter a little message saying, okay, what did you change? Please describe your change, so that when you look at the log a year later, or teammates look at the log later, they will be able to see what has changed. So, but yeah. So
it sounds like when you're trying to make the changes, you're actually keeping track of everything, all the changes you're wanting to make before you actually commit to make them, and you
Exactly.
always have a confirmation needed before the actual changes are made.
Exactly, and that is sort of an observation about common workflows in Excel. Very often in Excel, people who have used Excel a lot, they tend to be very scared of making accidental changes. So often in Excel, there's a lot of things you could do in Excel, but you find yourself, I don't want to do that. I don't want to sort this table, because every time I sort this table. There's the danger that I mess up and I don't select the whole table and I scramble the results. And well, I could make a copy of this Excel file before I start sorting the results or doing other things that require cut and paste or whatnot. So I'm just not going to do it. There's this kind of friction in Excel against doing things you can do because you're afraid of changing the data. And many of the things you end up doing in Excel most of the time, they have to do with how you want to display the data, not with actually editing the raw data. So that is one of the fundamental limitations of a spreadsheet, that the presentation of the data and the actual raw data, they're the same thing in Excel. Even formulas are in the middle of your data. So even if you just want to see the data in two different ways, you run the risk of changing the data, or what you consider to be the raw data. And I often illustrate this. So in the custom-made applications, one of the things that sort of distinguishes a database from a spreadsheet, or a database application from a spreadsheet, is that there are multiple different ways to look at the same data, and you need to be able to look at the data in different ways depending on what you're trying to achieve. So if we are looking at a course, we're browsing the course catalog or we're editing courses, it makes sense to be looking at this form view and to be looking at a list of courses. But then maybe in another situation, we are looking at this from an HR perspective or from an administrative perspective, where we want to be working with instructors and figuring out people's teaching load, for instance. So I started a new perspective here to illustrate that, starting from this instructors table instead. And I can look at the same database in the opposite order here, or starting from a different table, starting from instructors. And I can see, well, show me the instructors and the courses that they teach. So now I'm showing a different, kind of visualization, or a different kind of query based on the same data, essentially the same data. I'm not showing all the fields, but the same structure from the opposite end. To start evaluating things like, well, who's teaching the most hours per week? We can go in using the exact same interface, and we can find the meetings that each instructor has been assigned to. Most of the time in this tool, you spend probably hiding and showing fields, which is what I've been doing most of the time here. But then you see here, okay, now we have a beginning time and an end time for each meeting. So if we're going to try to see who is teaching the most courses or has the highest teaching load, we probably need a calculation, like you would be able to do in SQL. So calculations are done with formulas like in Excel, except they work slightly differently. We try to make them feel similar, but, well, you'll see a couple of differences here. So what I'm going to do is, next to the beginning time and the end time, I'm going to insert a column that's assigned to a formula. It has a little formula symbol. And I'm going to say, well, give me the end time minus the beginning time. Now, unfortunately, I haven't implemented the minus operator here, so I'm going to do something called diff days instead. But it's essentially the end time minus the start time. And I'm going to multiply by 24, because this is going to be like in the Excel style. I want the number of hours. And I'm going to call this column, I'm going to give it a name, hours taught. So now I have a new column here that is just the difference between the beginning and the end time for each meeting. So I put the formula here at the level of the meeting, and that means that for each row in the meetings table in this query, I'm going to get an entry in the formula column. So then, and I entered the formula only once. I don't have to drag it down like in Excel. This is more like in SQL, where you enter a formula as part of the select clause. And then out here at the different level, at the instructor's level, let me hide a couple of columns just so that I have a little more space to work in here. I insert another formula here at this instructor's level, and I say that that's going to be the sum of this hours taught column. And now I get a total, and this total is going to be at the level of each instructor because I put the formula at that level. So now I have one formula that's the sum of another formula at two different levels. Having gotten that, and this is a little bit different from SQL too, because I didn't have to specify a group by statement. The grouping here is determined by where did I put the formula. And also, unlike Excel, I have not changed the database here. These are all read-only operations. I'm just editing the query, essentially. Now, having gotten the sum, I could sort descending on the sum and see who teaches the most. And that's Robert Esperance. And immediately I start looking, well, isn't there only 40 hours per week? How can this be true? 273 hours. No one teaches 273 hours per week, right? Now, had I been writing this as a SQL query, I would not be seeing this. I would be seeing just this. I would be seeing just the result. And I would have had to write another SQL query to start debugging this. In this case, I actually see here what goes into every sum. So if I scroll down here, it's going to load more, and we see, okay, Henry Gingrich is on second place. And you see, well, there's a lot of repetition, and also, oh, I see here that we're actually including a lot of different terms, a lot of different semesters. I'm going to filter on that to just focus on one semester, spring 06-07. This is an old data set. If I filter there, then the total is going to change. And not only did the total change, but now Michael Littman is on top. So this is a query that continues to work when the data changes or when other parts of the query changes. Even parts of the query that I might have specified several steps earlier. I could also go in and I could see, well, if you know the schema well enough, there is a column called status, and some of these sections, they've actually been canceled, so they shouldn't be counted. Well, how could people know that O means open and X means canceled? Well, that's another usability problem, but that's sort of a fact of life in these obscure databases. In fact, Ultorg is the name of an obscure database column that existed in a data set that my wife and I worked on once. That's a different story. It means ultimate organization in the chain of subsidiaries. Anyway, so I'm going to exclude all the canceled sections. And when I do that, again, you will see the total here will change. Michael Littman, as instead of 30 hours per week, it's 24.7. So it's still a lot of teaching, but now it's realistic.
So, Eric.
Yes.
I have interruptive questions.
Okay.
First, you've shown us one of the three things it can do, right? So far, that Ultorg can do.
Yeah, I've shown you joins and showing nested fields. I've shown you filters. I've shown you formulas. And
going up a level in terms of Ultorg. Weren't there three different categories of things that you were?
Yeah, so let's see. The visual query system.
Right.
So these are all integrated. So it's still, all of these three things are in this panel here.
Okay.
The visual query system is all the things basically you can do from this menu. Together, these operations, the formulas, the sorting, filtering, and joining fields. Together, these let you express queries. So construct in a visual way a database query that is equivalent to SQL 92 in expressiveness plus this ability to show one-to-many relationships. Then the layout engine is this button here, which is the ability to have these automatically formatted tables that know how to have the right column widths and everything.
So
And,
let me pause there.
Yeah.
This is a complete deliverable as a project, right? Or as an application.
Yeah. This is it's not released yet, but this is all one thing, so to speak. These are not three different systems. It's one.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm the user, if I am that power user,
yes, exactly.
This is something I can deliver to my boss and say, done. Look at it. It is great.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
This thing. Okay.
So in fact, if you were looking at this kind of query, maybe at this point you would put a bar chart on it, and you would just hide all the details, and you would share this with your boss, the final result.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Right.
It
and then
visual. Okay.
Yeah, and you might even print it, or to a PDF or whatnot.
Okay.
But then if you send it to your boss and the boss has a copy of this app, then or your coworker goes in and sees just this. Okay, Michael Littman is on top, but how do I know how that you ended up with this result?
Yes, that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, where is the query? What exactly is the query here, and how do I see what the query is? Well, if you look at the header of this table, that tells you what the query is, or what you need to do to see what the query is. So in this case, it has this little, it says there's a formula here. So since there's a formula here, you must put the cursor here and look in the formula bar or open the cursor editor. Mm-hmm. It also shows, there's a sorting, so that's the sort by. And then it shows this little rectangle. I don't know if you see that, this little rectangle. Mm-hmm. These icons, they are referring to things that are explained in this menu. Mm-hmm. So the rectangle here says unhide reference. There are hidden columns here mm-hmm. that are part of this query. So if I open this menu again, I will be able to get back that hidden column that I hit before.
Right. So I understand that. I understand that. I understand how it's working now.
Mm-hmm.
My question then is, who is your target market? Is this a company to sell and to establish this product, or is it an open source project that you're just going to work on? Like, what is the final destination here?
The destination is for this to be a commercial product.
Okay.
Right now, this is just under development, and at the stage that the technology is now, mm-hmm. it will have to be targeted towards power users of Excel, and also people who have relational databases already, because mm-hmm. as you commented before, it's starting from this endpoint that you have to have some data already.
Yes, I say power users are not a good market.
The Excel power users for that point.
I say they're an ultimate, like, why would they spend money? Do they spend money? That kind of thing. But I do know a group that needs this, which would be data scientists.
Data scientist.
Right. So because there's a constant question of, prove to me that your thing works correctly. Mm-hmm. This model that you have, prove to me that it works correctly. Yes. Now, if you had, essentially, this is a way to build models or to analyze the data, right? That 80% of work that you do, mm-hmm. that a data scientist does, analyze the data and really get down into it, play with it, understand it very thoroughly before building their own models, and then hopefully they could explain how they got there, right? Yeah. Or at least partially or whatever. I'm not a data scientist. I just play one at Microsoft. So, so I think that market would be much more interested in this rather than power users, because power users.
Well, it's very broad. Well, power users of Excel specifically, but right. Again, it is a sort of a longer term.
Yeah.
The thing is, as the technology develops, it's going to start out being fairly technical and mm-hmm. making a lot of assumptions about the shape of the data. And as you see, this is a desktop app, so it's not going to be a web app for a while. That means that you can exclude anyone who's only going to use it for 10 minutes, right?
Whoa. It's only a desktop app because you're choosing to do it that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
because you can rebuild this.
Yeah, you can
as
do
a
that.
web app, and
exactly.
before you go too far, right?
That's right. Yeah. So, but it's a one-man project at the moment. So the moment you want to go to multiple platforms, you need to be a little farther along.
No, not multiple
Yeah.
platforms. Just switch. Stop doing it on a desktop.
Oh
Why?
yeah.
No one's going to use a desktop product.
Oh well, Power
Okay.
BI is desktop, Tableau, etc. Excel.
Yeah, I
So,
understand
yeah.
that. I understand that. So ultimately,
So-
yes, those are. But
But there's
you could
going to be
just-
a lot of code sharing between the desktop and the
yes.
web app.
So you might as well do it as a web app first
So,
before
so
you go too far.
Oh, interesting. Oh, it's very far. So it's too far to just make the switch, in one day. So
No.
yeah.
Not one day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you.
So
So
but
I have a
it's
different,
also- yeah.
I have a different question, Eric.
Mhm.
So in order to get this to where you think is going to be a minimum viable product, so right now this is another a beta release that you're working. This is your next beta release that you'll have finalized soon. How much more iterations do you need, given that you're the only one doing this development right now? How much more until you get to like something that you think is actually minimum viable product that you can then go to market with as a client solution?
Well, there is a very specific list of things that need to be done before that, and I'm getting towards the end of that. I have to take a small break from the project for a couple of months now while writing another grant proposal, because this is done as a grant from the National Science Foundation. So I'm starting to write the next round of grant proposal for the next phase of this project. Then I'm going to go back to engineering and building a website for this thing and actually starting to put it out there. I think you will see the set of features won't be very different. There will be this set of features in the release product, the first version of it. So it's all really a lot of polish and going down a list of things you have to have before you can put it out there and tell people to trust it with your data.
No, you don't. Have a minimum viable thing that you can do with it. Just say to somebody, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is a way to analyze your data," or don't say anything. Just have them use it, and
Yeah.
they can tell you what they think it's for.
Yeah.
But this is a way to analyze your data and get further into it and play around with it, and it will give you information that you could use to do other whatever you do in your daytime, right?
Yeah.
That 80% of the time that you spend searching for data and cleaning data and analyzing data, here you go.
Yeah.
This will help to do this point to this point. And as people, can you try it out? Tell me what else is needed, edit whatever, and then you will get more, because you get more feedback than if you do. I'm toiling in my basement. I'm getting grants, which is kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
If you I think this is at least a minimum viable product. If you put it out there, and this is my opinion. If you put it out there, meaning tomorrow you put up a landing page and somebody has to email you to get the code or whatever it is to run this, but they contact you and you're and they directly ask for whatever you put on the landing page, right? Tool to help you do research or to analyze data before you get to build your models.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. Except I'm a very slow worker. So you say tomorrow. Well, in my world, tomorrow is like, 6 months. But yeah, I'm sort of the opposite of Mark Zuckerberg. It's the opposite of move fast and break things. I want to get into that. I want to get into that mode of release often or release early. This is partially, the schedule of this project is partially a consequence of the way it started, because it was an academic project where sort of 8 years worth of features were poured into the system and only brought to the point where you could run a user study and publish a paper on it.
That's perfect.
So, yeah. Well, right. It's perfect in the academic sense.
No, it's perfect in the commercial sense as well.
Yeah,
because you're essentially doing the same thing. If you toil in your basement for another year or two or whatever,
Yeah.
you're getting no feedback whatsoever, unless you're doing more of these kind of sessions.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to do that. So
Okay, then you should be getting feedback from these
Yeah.
sessions. Samori, who is in the IT field, is
Yeah.
telling you that this is a minimum viable product.
Yeah.
I could use this, right,
Yeah.
to research data. I could talk to people who are data scientists, data engineers, etc., to tell them, hey, there's a tool out there. It's a little early, but if you can get your hands on it, call this guy Eirik, get him to get this to you, right, and just
Well,
experiment with it.
if you would be willing to do that, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because I'm sending out Dropbox links to people who want this version of the tool at the current state that it's in.
Yeah.
And I can tell you what the state is in it's in right now. For instance, right now, you can trust the queries because it has a huge test suite that makes sure that the sums are all coming out correct. The big thing that it's missing right now is that when you restart the application, it forgets all your queries. So that's the main remaining thing. So but it's
wait. When you say it forgets your queries, are you saying that even this visual display that I have here would disappear essentially?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
But it's coming soon. But it's it's an example of something that makes it less than a minimum viable product. But it's
this video is being recorded. Have you recorded, or have you known the other sessions that you've gone to? Have they been recorded as well?
Yeah. There's some of them.
Then you could
and there are
ask.
various lengths. Yeah.
You could ask some of those folks to get those videos to you, or provide a link to them if they're open to people.
Yep.
And you could put this on your landing site so people can actually see what you're talking about.
Yeah, I like to do that. Yeah, every time I give a demo like this, I try to get a hold of the latest video and put it out there. So because sometimes they get a little long. So at some point I have to put some work into making a shorter video that the hour. We're probably even over time right now. I don't know, but this is useful. So it's good. But there's I actually look forward to getting into the mode of doing a little bit of marketing work and sales work, because it's going to be away from engineering and building the proper landing page and so on. I know you can do something simple, and I do, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I want to sit down and do a proper landing page.
Everybody's a perfectionist. That's not the point.
Exactly.
The point is whether you're willing to take the risk earlier in your search for perfection, so that you can actually you could charge people to use this, right? A beta product or whatever.
Yeah.
It seems like you could still charge people to use this.
Yeah.
You could charge.
Yeah.
You could charge a certain group of early people who are interested in this.
This is actually
that'll give you your funds for later.
This is actually a good question to ask multiple people here in this group. What is the expected price point for something like this? And this is not, because any one of you want to pay, but from your experience looking at tools in this industry, what should I charge for this? Just to collect a couple of data points from you.
When you say this, you mean this and
yeah, suppose this
right now?
If you call this a minimum viable product, what should I charge for it?
I don't know what you should charge. I would probably pay up to.
It actually
somewhere. If I saw prices in the range of $99 to $199, I'm not crying, right? Because I could see that it has value. If it's going to be a subscription, maybe I want a little less, so that I can, because I need to show value each time for that subscription every time I use it.
So when you say 99 to 199, you were assuming perpetual or yearly, or?
I would say yearly.
Yearly.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think one of the things that you could do, Eirik, is just do some competitive analysis with some of the tools that people are actually using that don't have this capability of doing the modeling.
Yeah.
To actually come up with the price. But I think that Samori, has given you what I think is a pretty reasonable range. Like now you just need to validate and see. And sometimes even that is part of what you need to test is figure out, because if you ask people, and they want even truthfully to tell you how much they want to pay, they're not necessarily going to be able to tell you because they really haven't taken a look at the total cost of ownership of the tools that they have right now. And I think that often this is what you need to test right away, and hopefully do a lot of A/B testing, meaning you have a control group, you offer them something at one price, and another group that you offer them at a different price, and just see what the feedback is, and how long they actually spend, and even track the usage. How much use they give it, and figure out from there how to make decisions. Because I think that's really what you want to be able to do. So I completely agree with Samori. I think that it's really up to you. I don't think there's really much risk if you're doing like you want to get feedback and that's really the value to you. I think you should just wrap it up, offer it as a beta release, and start using that feedback to figure out whether some of the stuff that you have is even like do users even care about that at all? Because they may not. I mean, you care about it and you want to make sure that you get to it, but I think ultimately it will help you prioritize the must-haves that the beta users are telling you they would like to have, versus what you have in mind from a technical point of view, what's feasible for you to implement on your own. And I think that some of that feedback may be sometimes positive, sometimes negative. You're going to do this over and over, like repetition and experimenting and setting up these small batch experiments, and you're learning very quickly. And you can decide whether you want to get paid for it or not. I mean, because I would do it at the very beginning for just getting the value of getting the feedback straight out, because I would make it
absolutely,
of the agreement.
When Hector and I agreed on $99 to $199 per year, we are just driving you to the bottom, because that's a crazy price for all the benefit that you get for this thing, right? I mean, but as a beta, quote unquote,
because Tableau is like $700 a year or something, and then Tableau is probably considered expensive, or is it?
Tableau is considered expensive, yes.
Yeah. Is it considered prohibitively expensive, or what is it that makes Tableau worth?
It depends on
$800 per year, or
it depends on the deal, right? I don't really know the details of Tableau, but just thinking about it in terms of Power BI or some other tools.
Yeah, which is cheaper.
There are basically different things that you can get. Right? If you have, there's a free version out there, of course.
Yeah.
There's a free version out there.
Well, not Tableau. Well, yes, if your data is public, it's free.
So there's a free version out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's enough to show people, hey, you can do. This is what the tool can do. There is let's call it the regular version, which is could still be desktop. Yeah. Connecting with something else. There's, then you start getting into the premiums, and in Power BI, the premium can include, embedding. So you can embed the report in a page. Yeah. It can include, the number of users, the amount of memory and stuff that you can utilize, how much data is going through, any support level, so there's a lot more. So the pricing depends, unfortunately, on all that. But I would envision that this product would be if you're charging businesses to use it or organizations, it would be in for real once it works, right? You can actually do minus, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And you can actually save your data.
Exactly.
I would envision 500 or more per month. Right?
Per month.
Yep.
Per month. If you're doing it as a SaaS, if you're going to do it a different. Oh, sorry.
Per month. That's more than Tableau. That is Tableau is 70 per month.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, you're saying 500 or more per month, so more like Ultorg kind of pricing.
Yes.
Because
but you have to be able to translate the value of this for people.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have to be able to understand the value that you're giving them. You are taking in a year, you are taking somewhere around 300 days of their work down to whatever benefit this gives you, right?
Yeah.
Because this is that work crunched down to, I can point to my database, I can a few form changes and stuff like that, and look at that.
Yeah.
Now I understand what this data relates to, or how I can relate it, how can I explain to other people. I can even do minimum graphs and things like that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that based on the discussion that we had earlier before this demo, Eric, you were explaining to me that you're really looking to allow people who are not DBAs to be able to fool around with the way that the forms are created and create either the reports or basically add things that now need to once they get it right, they can hand off to a DBA, right? I think that if all you did was keep track of any of these operations that you're doing just by clicking here, clicking there, you're doing really quick. Narrow it down to the number of actual queries that some administrator, database administrator, would have to write down to get to the same level number of operations that you're doing. And I think that you can actually figure out how much time it would take for a DBA to actually come up with the right sequence that works, and to actually have something that's done. Because you're allowing people to do this in a way that they don't have to do all these, understand any SQL or how to do any SQL queries. They're just manipulating the data and on the background, you're generating those queries to actually get this information laid out the way they want, right? All of this manipulation, they're doing just manipulations with zero coding. And I think that if you keep track of all those queries that somebody would need to write if they want this to be done in the real, inside the database, that just figure out how much time you're saving them. And even if you charge 5%, 3 to 5% of that, of whatever they were paying somebody, for that number of hours, 100% of their hours at whatever their headcount rate. These are usually 6-figure salaries they're earning, right? You're delivering a lot of value. And even if you were to charge 3% of that for anyone to use, any data scientist or anyone who wants to do this without having to wait for a DBA to be available and dedicate the time and then even request the budget, because sometimes I don't have that budget, just get it done. I think that this will save a lot of pain points for people who have multiple databases. Their data is scattered around databases and they're stuck having to wait for somebody who can actually make those changes on each and every database. And you're making this seem like it's a spreadsheet. It's I think it's very powerful. So I think that you need to just kind of wrap it up, get to a point where you can actually just do beta, get feedback, and start doing some competitive analysis, and then figure out how to go to market with just what I think you're almost done. I think you just need to figure out how to do this, and you can have a beta where you're learning, and maybe you put those in the product backlog, so you put things in the queue, so that when you do get you can actually relaunch with maybe some things that are easy to implement, and that becomes like a paid beta, right? So what you're gonna move is going from an unpaid free beta to get the feedback. Once you hear a lot of positive feedback saying, hey, when is this gonna be available? That's what you want to get from the users, right? Then the next beta, it can be a paid beta. You decide, you just leave some money on the table, but just rationalize how much time and pain points you're saving them by not having to wait for a team of DBAs to be able to implement all of these queries that they're actually doing by just manipulating the data in your tool.
Yeah, and you should let them tell you this, by the way.
Yes.
And when they tell you, you write it down and you repeat it back to them. So, because they will tell you. Like if you come in and you start, if you did this presentation again to BIDC, and you started talking about the value of what this tool does, I'm coming in, I came into this meeting, Ultorg, Ultron? I don't know. What's happening here? Is it going to be some sort of European monster supposed to relate to this thing? No, nothing of the sort. And then it just looked like, this looks like SSIS or SSMS or anything where you're just kind of, you have a tool, PG admin or whatever, you have a tool that looks at a database and is just you're basically going to be doing exactly the same thing. It's just different form. Yes, it is that, but it's a little different from what I thought.
Yeah.
And also, the visualization is always present, right? Because you're not doing a bunch of manipulation and eventually you'll see it. You're seeing it at each stage.
Yeah.
So you can take
step by step
show
in
people.
real time, and you can back up, or you can, you know, and you can
Absolutely.
pivot on whatever you're doing
Yeah.
when
Yep.
you don't like what you see. So I think you're saving a lot of time, and I think you need to figure out exactly how much by allowing the people to try it out, and they
Yeah.
will tell you, hey, this saved me, you know, so many hours. Then get that information and then figure out, okay, how many hours am I saving? Figure out if they have to pay somebody at whatever rates that, you know, wages are at how long, and it's not going to be that fast necessarily, but just do the calculation, and then you can do the ROI very quickly, saying, hey, normally you would pay this much for somebody to do it, you know, over, and it would take them at least this long. You guys are doing it, you know, within a period of a few hours, what people might take, you know, a week or two after everything is said and done. All the testing has to be done, make sure nothing is broken from things that are working. You're saving a lot of pain points by just allowing them to do this, be able to say, okay, yes, this is exactly what I need, and just be able to, you know, show that they're actually be able to create this very quickly with your tool. I think it's very powerful.
Yeah. If you could find a data engineer and a data scientist somewhere out in the world who's willing to have virtual coffee with you and just sit down and talk and take one of their current problems, and you just kind of, by example, you pick whatever database you want. It doesn't really matter. You won't have their data, but by example, that you can show them, you know, what you can do with the tool and how it would help you, theoretically, do whatever the tasks they need to do. Yeah. Then you can get some free feedback that way.
Yeah. Sometimes I have people run the software on their machines, on their own data, sometimes even just by phone. So I'm sort of directing them blindly, and those can be, it's always a little more interesting when it's their data, because they don't have to look at this silly course catalog database.
Exactly.
It's actually pretty hard to find good example databases.
It is very hard.
Yeah. So I remember Northwind from Microsoft Access, but yeah. So
that's actually a separate business if you ever want to get into it. I've thought about this, which is selling data, like databases and data sets.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Modern ones.
Oh, yeah. My wife works not exactly like she does that kind of work.
Yeah.
So well, thanks for that feedback. So Maury, can I ask what kind of position are you in? You're in IT, you said.
I am the title is Cloud Solutions Architect. Mm-hmm. And but the objective of the group that I work with is to do customer success. Mm-hmm. So we help the customers, and mine are all federal, but we help the customers understand the tools that we provide in Azure, Microsoft Azure, and we help them build POCs and help them direct them to building a solution that they could use, introduce them to more modernized techniques and things like that. Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, this is very useful. Yeah.
So Maury, do you know of any other people, like peers, that are working in commercial sectors that you might refer to Eirik, that may want to try this out as part of a beta?
I've been thinking about that from the beginning, since we started talking about it. And the problem with my peers is that we are focused on particular accounts. Like you have let's call it the Mercedes-Benz account or something like that.
Yes.
So it's not really, and you have to work with that account. And so this is more, I'm not sure. I need to think, and I need to explore this more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that someone like I don't know if you guys are servicing Volkswagen. I mean, they're here in Northern Virginia, Volkswagen USA. Maybe a good if you know of anybody who actually, because I know they're probably doing a lot of number crunching, especially right now, or maybe even Hilton or Marriott. I mean, their world headquarters are here in the area. And I think they may have some use cases, especially right now when they're trying to figure out how to cost reduce.
Right.
And they probably have trimmed down all the staff that is doing this type of work in making changes to their database, and they're trying to they've been.
Well, Hector, you just blew my head. That's a totally different thing. That's true. Yes.
That's what I was telling him, and even Walt Disney just announced this past week that they're about to lay off 25,000 employees because they haven't been able to open up any of their theme parks. I mean, these are all like opportunities in hospitality and entertainment, media companies that right now are downsizing, and they would see the value of having this because they don't have DBAs anymore.
Yeah, I sort of hate to phrase the value proposition in terms of positions saved, but
well, I mean,
but
in this case,
in
this case, you're helping them
hard.
put out a fire because they're stuck, right? Whatever
Yeah.
changes they want to make to their current databases, they can't because they don't have enough staff, and right now, staff is like, have a backlog that is like they're way below water right now, trying to keep up with all the requests that they have in the queue.
There's a fair number of people I've talked to who have been consultants too, so they've been consulting for large companies, and they have more of an incentive to learn a couple of tools and become experts in them and bring them to their customers and get the job done quickly. And they may see many different organizations, so there may be a new database or data set or warehouse every time. So it's kind of a different class of people in the organizations versus people coming in from outside.
Yeah, Deloitte made a presentation at BIDC once with one of their tools. I forget the name, Samos, something like that. But it was a multiple. I think I would say BI. It was a multiple BI layered tool that sort of did this kind of thing, but also more graphic, right? More visualizations.
Yeah.
I don't know how often one of those folks would look for something that's halfway there.
Yeah.
Or whatever percentage there, and take that on. But it depends on how you decide what this product is.
Yeah, exactly.
Each phase, right? So right now you could call it a something tool that does whatever it is that is, right? And you could say done.
Yeah.
I mean, the minus works.
Right. As an example. Yeah. So there's one sort of challenge with this project, which is that the pitch necessary to sell it has to change a bit as it becomes more complete. So this replacing CRUD apps, it is a longer term pitch than being a tool for existing databases, which is why you probably asked the question earlier. But this assumes that you have a database, so it's not exactly what you said it was in the beginning. That has always been the challenge here because, the pitch has to be adjusted according to the subset of features that are available and that I'm willing to release. Sometimes I will have to deactivate features if they're not ready. That's one way to do a minimum viable product. Yeah. Take things away.
But the pitch, again, let your customers tell you what the pitch is.
Yeah.
So this is why you talk to the data scientists or data engineers.
Yeah.
Early on in the cycle, again, virtual coffee or whatever is done nowadays. Just call people up that you may know or who may know someone that you know, and it just gets some real feedback. Because I'm basing this on what I know. I'm not a full data scientist. Sorry, I'm not a data scientist at all. But I do work some AI. I have some knowledge of some AI, and I have and I'm working with tools which are kind of built for what is it called? Citizen scientists, right? So the AI is pre-built. Some of these things are the bots that you could create up kind of pre-built, and you're just taking elements and adding to it.
Yeah.
Power Apps would be Power Apps, Power Play. I think the whole thing is called Power Platform. is exactly something like this, right? Where you can create a tool like this yourself, no code.
Right. This is the the sort of CRUD app generator. I think I saw.
And no code.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is the main idea, or low code.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is what this well, that is what the sort of CRUD app part of this market is called these days, right?
Yeah.
So,
let me ask. I wanna kind of give everybody else a chance. So does anybody have any questions? I'm looking at the chat, and I don't see any more questions than the ones that we were looking at earlier. But does anybody that is still listening have any questions, or are you guys interested in being a beta user? Do you have any application specifically that could that you have in mind? If you do that, I would say reach out to Eirik. And again, I'm retyping in the so that it's fresh on the at the very top of the chat or the very bottom of the chat, the actual URL where you can submit a form, and then just you'll get instructions on how you can actually install when the next beta, which I think you're wrapping this up in the next few weeks. Is that right, Eirik?
Oh, the next beta, I just make a version that I can
you can release
tomorrow. So yeah,
got it.
So whenever someone wants to try it, they get the latest version.
Okay.
I can also tell you one use case, which is what I'm, the system is now getting complete enough that I'm starting to use it for real things myself, which is a high bar because I am actually a very picky user. So I use this to manage my own CRM system. So my CRM system right now is an Excel sheet with 12 different tables. One is a table of people I've met, everyone I've ever met, like Hector del Castillo, and another one is the times that I met people or emailed with them, and that has a join to the first table. Then I have people that I did interviews with and typed up interview notes, things like that. And I have times that I sent a copy of the software to people. So every time I send a copy, I put the version, okay, this and this date. So then I have the city, so I can go, oh, I'm in Vancouver. Let's see who I know in Vancouver. And I use this software basically as my Salesforce. But with Excel at the moment, because the system doesn't host data yet. So the database, so to speak, is an Excel sheet. The other thing I use it for is to track the progress of the entire system. So instead of using Jira, I'm actually using a giant spreadsheet with lots of tables that I use Ultorg to visualize. So that is one reason why I say it's also for spreadsheet power users. It's a certain kind of power user, the people who have Excel open all the time and who keep data in Excel. So that is just one thing to mention. So another obvious thing is if you have Postgres or MySQL installed on your laptop, chances are, and you're using it for something, if you're a software developer or you're using it for anything, chances are this would be easier to work with than your PG admin or SQL developer if you're looking at the data in any sort of way.
That is interesting.
Those are some other things you can do with the tool right now.
Yeah, that's interesting because all my opinions have been based on almost kind of on the data you've shown us.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, and that's the tricky part about the demo too, because I have to remind people that this can be anything, which is a very dangerous thing to say. You don't want to say this is a tool for anyone, right?
You know what? You could think of this as kind of an Electron type thing, where Electron is the basis of a lot of application. Yeah. Okay, so you could essentially be a factory of applications.
Yeah.
Or focus of applications, right? So we talked a lot about the data engineer, data scientist side of things. You were talking about power users, and it didn't make sense to me because it didn't seem, based on this example, it didn't seem as if there was a big enough market for power users, and that got you that got you anywhere. But now that you stepped back and you said, well, this could be for anything or anyone. It makes a lot of sense, but I still don't think it should be focused on power user. I think it should be more focused on different markets.
Yeah.
And you may want to target specific ones.
Well, so power user is not a very precise term, right? It's always power user of something. So when I say power user, which people do you have in mind?
People who can spend their lives saying the words pivot table.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, we're talking about
and setting up macros.
So the Excel, the Excel power users, because programmers are not that group. We don't call programmers power users. And in fact, most programmers don't use Excel. So they're like, this doesn't run on Linux.
The funny thing about programmers is that, and the entire BI industry, eventually you got to get back to Excel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And that's interesting talking to people. Even the programmers, when they have been away from programming for 5 years and become managers, they no longer program. They go back to Excel.
Yeah. Not only that, but all those big systems that the SAPs and all that stuff like that. I can't understand it unless you print it out in Excel.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So,
let me go ahead and I want to actually thank you and I want to get into the format. I'm going to stop the sharing. I'm going to share my screen to get back to.
Thank you for listening for this. Wrap it up. Sorry for making it so long, but this was very useful.
I want to thank all of you for attending. Here's the information that we just submitted in the tab. So if you want to become an Ultorg beta user, just fill out this form, and Eirik will provide you information and the freshest build of his beta release. And here is his contact information.
And feel free to share this with anyone. People can just email me.
This URL is actually the short URL to his LinkedIn profile, so feel free to connect with him. And this is his a single page website that he's got right now. It will evolve at some point, but right now, as he's still looking for beta users who are willing to try this out, he's got some information about his contact information there. And then also, if you're interested in any additional or have any suggestions for additional topics that we're going to be doing for the rest of the 2 remaining meetings that we have scheduled for the rest of 2020, reach out to me, let me know. Samori, if you want to do something where you just are, showing a video demo, and you're talking about how you're using that tool, if it's a Microsoft thing that's available, more than welcome, because I'm actually trying to get more people. And it's been, I've been actually actively going after some of these analytics platform vendors that, we've had in the past. Right now, they're pretty much on their own, doing their own thing. And I think it's because they're actually getting a lot of adoption right now. A lot of enterprises right now are accelerating what they call, adoption of digital transformation, which is coming down to bit by bit, taking all the functions in your business and digitize them somehow, which means evolve your tools because you have legacy and everybody's dependent on the legacy. Nobody wants to change. And it's pretty hard to do. So right now, this being working from home, a lot of vendors are actually accelerating that. And I think it's actually, there's been a surge in demand for all of these different tools because everybody's now tinkering with different things and figuring out how to do things very quickly and figure out which tool is the best one that allows them to get, where they want, where they need to be pretty quickly without necessarily doing a lot of extra work and a lot of heavy coding. So
yeah, I'll look into it. Yeah. Because I don't know who I have to ask or whatever. And I have to actually come up with the content.
Well, like I said, you could be just like, even if you reach out to like a sales engineer that, you can invite and you can talk about, different applications. I mean, they probably would have some of that available. And, I'll be open for doing that in the next few meetings if you can find something. And we can always talk offline as well. So just let me know.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. This
so
is
with
interesting,
that,
Eirik. Very interesting.
Yes. Thank you so much, Eirik. Thank you for
a very useful discussion. I have lots of notes now.
And hopefully there'll be people reaching out, and let's stay in touch. Let me know if there's anything else we can do. I will definitely send you the recording, and I will send everyone a link where they can actually see the video playback of the session. Also, we'll be able to see the slides that he showed. I'll be putting that in the same page. So I'll be distributing that probably in the next day or so.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and you have a great rest of your week.
Yep.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.